Good morning for Turkey and good afternoon for Manila. Thank you very much for joining us today at the Asian Development Bank Business Opportunities Seminar hosted by the Foreign Economic Relations Board of Turkey, DEIK. And of course, special thanks to ADB to make this seminar happen as we organize every year with their great support. So before we begin, a very quick note for our Turkish audience. Seminerimizde İngilizce, Türkçe simultane tercüme hizmetimiz vardır. Sağ alt köşedeki interpretation kısmından Japonca'yı işaretleyerek konuşmaları ve sunumları Türkçe olarak tercümanlarımız tarafından dinleyebilirsiniz. Now I like to give the virtual floor for his opening remarks, Mr. Suha Guzar, DEIK Turkey Singapore Business Council Chairman. Suha Bey, floor is yours.
Thank you, Temmuz Bey. Good morning. Dear Mr. Rustam Abdukayumov, Director, Procurement Division 2, Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department. Dear Ms. Yoni Yong, Senior Digital Technology Specialist, Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department of ADB. And dear Mr. Mutka Malhotra, Public-Private Partnership Specialist, Portfolio and Financial Management Department. And dear representatives of Turkish business community. As the chairman of Turkish Singapore Business Council of Foreign Economic Relations Board of Turkey, it's a privilege for me to address you of today. It gives me great pleasure to extend you all a very warm welcome on behalf of DEIK and the Turkish business community, and to say how grateful we are to be partnering with Asian Development Bank at this Business Opportunities Seminar. I hope that this online seminar will serve to broaden our perspectives and support our private sector on to find out more about ADB procurement system, procurement opportunities, and digital technologies. We hope that it will encourage toward more cooperation between Turkish private sector and the ADB. I would like to begin my speech by introducing Foreign Economic Relations Board of Turkey, DEIK, a gateway to Turkish private sector to the world. It was founded in 1985, and since that day, it has been monitoring and developing Turkey's economic relations with foreign countries. It has 95 founding institutions representing various sectors of the Turkish private sector and operates through bilateral business councils under Turkish Economy Ministry. As a leading private sector organization, DEIK works to improve Turkey's economic, commercial, and investment relations with all international stakeholders. Esteemed guests, we are observing a real shift in today's world of center of gravity. Scholar Parag Khanna asserts that the Asian century has begun and indicates that the region's rise is not cyclical, but structural. By 2030, Asia is expected to become a home of more than 4.5 billion people and 65% of the world's middle class. The region is projected to account for more than half of global GDP, trade, and investment by 2050. Business people and decision makers in public sector turn their eyes to Asia Pacific as a new center of gravity in the global balance of power. Therefore, establishing favorable relations with the region and forming strong trade and investment ties are becoming a necessity for the business development strategies of millions of companies. Thus, many risks and challenges, including the rapid digitalization, middle income trap, and the climate crisis need to be addressed as fast as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is the most urgent threat facing our societies. Recent IPCC report revealed a code red for humanity. The poorest and the most vulnerable people are being affected the most due to the climate crisis. In the meantime, as the United Nations SDG number 13 indicates, climate crisis requires solutions that need to be coordinated at the international level to help developing countries more toward a low carbon economy. Thus, ADB is an essential organization to overcome this crisis. It is important to notice that from 2011 to 2018, ADB approved over $29 billion in climate financing. ADB is also an accredited entity of the Green Climate Fund and is accessing resources from the fund to support climate change actions in the Asia-Pacific region. Nevertheless, We are aware that infrastructure, workforce skills, and productivity will be critical to competitiveness in the decade ahead. Low-cost labor alone will not be enough. All industry value chains now rely more heavily on research and development and innovation. Thus, as the representatives of private sector, we need to identify more and more innovative and environmental-friendly opportunities and to invest in global action that facilitates low-carbon recovery after pandemic. As a Turkish business community, we are committed to help building inclusive, green, sustainable, and fair economies and support wide-range initiatives around the globe. Dear guests, Turkish private sector is becoming more proactive in abroad. Turkey joined the Asian Development Bank in 1991, which we are celebrating over 30 strong and promising partnership this year. Turkey is one of the contributors to ADB, and its share of procurement contracts for loan, grant, and technical assistance projects is on the rise. Companies and consultants have since gained a total approximately $3 billion in procurement contracts involving goods and services originating from Turkey on ADB financed projects. With its Asia New initiative launch in 2019, Turkey aims to improve to interstate relations with Asian countries and to encourage the expansion of the trade capacity of the private sector with the region. On behalf of DEIK, Turkey Asia Pacific Business Councils, we are supporting this initiative with the preparation of various reports and meeting in coordination with many national and international stakeholders and helping to create awareness on the opportunities throughout the region. I would like to thank you all for your attention. Hoping to organize this seminar next year in person and looking forward to welcome all you soon in Istanbul. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suabe, for your insightful speech. Now I'd like to give the virtual floor to Mr. Rustam Abdukayumov, Director at the Procurement Division, Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department of ADB.
Thank you so much, Temuz Bey. And first of all, good morning to all our colleagues in Turkey. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual business opportunity seminar. I would like to extend my thanks to our colleagues from Turkey's Foreign Economic Relations Board and Turkey-Singapore Business Council, specifically to Suhabe for helping us in organizing this event. As you know, that pandemic has happened last year and had a serious impact on many areas of economic development. But despite of that, ADB's portfolio is continuously growing and we are processing more and more new type of projects. So current sovereign operations portfolio in ADB stands about $100 billion. And this means all projects which are financed by ADB under government guarantees. In addition to that, we have about $14 billion non-sovereign portfolio, which is projects and loans provided by ADB's private sector operations department to private entities without government guarantees. So we have two different types of loans which we provide, with the government guarantees and without government guarantees. In addition to that, I just wanted to share with you, in 2020, ADB provided about $200 million for consulting services that are administered by ADB itself. It means ADB does recruitment of consultants and manages those contracts. On average, we finance about 4,000 contracts with individual consultants in any given year and about 200 contracts with firms. But we should not forget that in addition to those contracts, there are many consulting opportunities under loans and grants that are managed by the borrowers. And since ADB portfolio is growing and we see more and more complex projects being prepared, there is increased need from borrowers for goods, civil works, and for consulting services. And these opportunities are advertised on ADB websites. And we note that many large contractors, they have offices in many countries in Asia and they closely monitor those opportunities. For consulting industry, the situation may be a bit different because not all consulting firms have offices in Asia, and therefore they may not be aware on how to find the opportunities on the ADB website. So this is what we are going to share later with you. I also wanted to indicate that lately we see increased demand from our borrowers for so-called non-traditional or more complex consulting services. Traditionally, consulting services are used for project preparation and also for monitoring implementation of projects. But lately, we see increased demand for more technical inputs, such as preparation of detailed design for engineering projects, undertaking feasibility studies, field surveys, and also for construction supervision. We have more and more projects which are focused on very heavy construction contracts where we need good expertise in contract management and construction supervision, where consultants act as engineers on behalf of employers. Right? And also what we see is that in many cases, consulting firms, in order to increase their chances to win contracts, they form associations or consortia with each other. So even big consulting firms, which are very well known, they prefer to associate with some other partners in order to basically strengthen their proposal, strengthen their team composition. And therefore, that's something maybe you can take into account when you will be considering your participation in ADB financed projects. Today's event, I understand that your request, we are focusing on two very interesting areas. One is digital technologies and another is public-private partnership. So there is increasing interest within ADB to promote the use of new technologies, including digital technologies, what we call also high-level technologies, because we believe that these can help improve the quality of projects, will introduce new elements to our borrowers, and they will be able to improve performance in many different sectors. Actually, our aim is to promote the use of the digital technologies in all sectors. PPP is another area where ADB sees increasing interest from our borrowers, and ADB provides assistance to our borrowing countries to create a proper enabling environment for PPP operations. This includes helping in preparing appropriate regulatory framework, improving capacity of government agencies on how to deal with the PPP transactions. And also we provide direct support to borrowers in identifying and preparing PPP projects through our transaction advisory support window. So we will have a presentation on digital technologies and PPPs. And in addition to that, we will also have presentation on ADB's procurement policy, procedures, and how to find business opportunities. As you know, we used to have this kind of business opportunities seminar in person. We used to travel to different countries and had 1 day or 2 days event. Unfortunately, due to COVID, it's not possible now, but we are looking forward to organize those events in Turkey, maybe next year, because we believe that's very useful for both ADB and the business community. We are heavily relying on support from the business community in preparation and implementation of our projects. And therefore, we are trying to continue that collaboration despite of COVID. And I hope you will find today's seminar useful. I hope you will learn a bit more about ADB, how we operate, how we prepare projects, how we do procurement. And most importantly, I think for many of you is that I hope as a result of this seminar, you will be able to win contracts under ADB finance projects. So I will stop here and will hand over back to Timuz Bey. Thank you very much and wishing you a successful seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rustam Abdukayumov. And now it's time to hear from Ms. Yoni Yeong, Senior Digital Technology Specialist at the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department of the ADB. virtual floor is yours, Ms. Young.
Thank you, Temuz. If the organizers could flash the presentations, I'll go ahead and start. Okay.
Just a sec.
No worries. But hello, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be part of the virtual business opportunity seminar. And my presentation has 3 parts. First, I'd like to give a broad overview of digital technology projects within ADB, and move on to providing specific examples across ADB's operational priorities to provide some colors and details of what these projects look like on the ground, and conclude with some directions of the digital opportunities with ADB. If you can move to the next slide. Actually, move on to slide 3, please. Fantastic. So before I start, I thought it would be useful to provide a disclaimer that when we say digital technologies, and you will see the word digital technologies and ICT sort of used interchangeably in the presentation, and it is really because ADB is going through a change where it used to be called ICT, but now we've embraced the term digital technologies, and institutionally that change is still being implemented. But the digital technologies within ADB obviously is a very complex and evolving a space. But I'd like to highlight that some of the ones that we've seen more often and are gaining tractions are the ones that are presented here. So broadband networks, digital ID, payments. Increasingly, we are seeing more interest from the governments in the use of cloud computing. IoTs on various sectors, and of course, using AI and machine learning to sort of integrate this increasing growth of data to make sense of it. And of course, for sources of data, use of Earth observation, GIS, are some of the solutions that we see being popular within ADB projects. But as you would all know, digital is sort of becoming embedded in everything we do, and we do expect to see more applications being used in ADB projects moving forward. So next, please. So let me first give you an overview of the digital technology projects. And these stats are from our team's own analysis of ADB's projects that were approved between 2010 and 2020. Next, please. So as of 2020, roughly 1 out of 6 ADB projects had digital components. And in terms of numbers, that's roughly 70 projects. But what's more important here, I think, is the upward trajectory of these projects with digital component. And the way we defined DT projects or projects with DT components was really going through the deliverables of these approved projects and ticking boxes when we see deliverables that rely heavily on digital technologies to deliver the results. And we've implemented a new system internally to make sure that we continue to track the digital technology projects, as well as different subsegments of digital technologies projects moving forward. Next, please. But in terms of the sectors of how these projects are scattered, we see that the public sector management, energy, and transport and agriculture are sort of at the leader category of digital users. And they roughly mirror the proportion of projects, proportion of sectors where ADB projects as well as lending are concentrated. So I think it's I think it just goes to show that digital is becoming mainstream, especially in the sectors that ADB has strengths and strong presence in. Next slide, please. But once we dig a little bit deeper, what we see though is that a lot of projects do have some level of digital technology components, although they may not be critical in delivering the results. We see more and more projects using digital technologies. And once again, it's not surprising given how we're all becoming more and more digitally dependent. But you know, as Rustam mentioned earlier, we do see a strong encouragement as well as some enthusiasm to use digital in ADB projects. Next, please. And in terms of the clients and countries that have taken up most number of digital technology projects, we see China, Indonesia, Mongolia, Bangladesh, and India, for the last 10 years. And in terms of the regional departments, it's South Asia, East Asia, but also Central West Asia, where Turkey is close to and perhaps has strategic interest in terms of expanding the business opportunities. Okay, so let me move on to showing some examples of what these digital projects look like. And I do apologize in advance since the slides have a lot of words and a lot of examples. So I won't be going through all of them, but rather highlight the ones that I think may be of interest to this crowd. The next. So these are examples that are pegged against ADB's operational priorities. And the first one is reducing poverty and inequalities. So for example, in Vietnam, the project that's supposed to help improve the local healthcare system in disadvantaged areas included a component, a DT component, where we implemented electronic health records. And as if any one of you are in the health sector, for example, digitizing the health records is one of the key strategies to improve not only the service but also to improve the quality of the care in the health sector. Moving on. In the area of gender equality, ADB has long been a supporter of the Benazir Income Support Program in Pakistan, for example. And that program included a cash transfer to women-led households. And this was done through the digital components of using mobile phones, ATMs, and a digital, computerized national ID cards. Next. The climate change was mentioned in the opening remarks, and there are a lot of projects trying to mitigate the impacts of climate change, as well as improve the disaster resilience within ADB. And we see a lot of interest in using the Earth observation technologies. So in Indonesia, for example, the satellite image was used to compare the pre and the post-tsunami landscape of Palau. And this was used to plan and reconstruct the damages done after the tsunami. And ADB has a strategic partnership with the European Satellite Association called ESA. And there's an ongoing technical assistance that ADB staff could avail to pilot and learn more about how to use Earth observation technology to monitor, plan, and forecast and analyze satellite images for land use, for water sources, or weather-related events that could be of use to the projects. Next. In the area of urban sector, which relates to our operational priority number 4, a lot of TAs, again, using digital technologies. So in the water management for South Asian cities, there is a technical assistance rather, that was done with a partnership with K-Water, which is a Korean utility agency, to use IoT-based solutions to detect water leaks and sort of improve the overall efficiency of the water management system. And in China, for example, there's a project, large site loan, that employs intelligent transport system, electronic buses, to improve the overall quality of the city transportation. Our operational priority 5 relates to food security and rural development. And again, China is an example where there's a nationwide initiative to digitize the traditional sectors, which they call Internet Plus policy. And this project is to support the digitization of the agricultural value chain by improving the traceability of the food sources. Moving on, in the area of governance, we've supported a project that digitized the tax management of Mongolia, again, considered to be a fairly successful project, as it, digitizing tax management not only improves the transparency, but also improves the efficiency of revenue collection from the government's perspective. Last one. So our last operational priority aims to promote regional cooperation and integration. And this is sort of closest to the heart of what our department does, since there is a specific operational department that focuses on digital connectivity. So ADB was one of the leading investors in submarine cables in the Pacific, for example, where a lot of private sector players didn't deem to be economically viable for their businesses. And ADB's support was sort of crucial in connecting the 12 small Pacific island countries, for example. And fairly recently, we've also invested in a satellite to a company called Pacific. So Rustam mentioned the non-sovereign lending, the private sector lending part of our operation. This is one of the examples where we provided a loan to a private company to construct and launch a geosynchronous satellite and to provide low-cost broadband to the Pacific Islands. Last, the last word. The next, please. So just a little bit about my team. So we're a digital technology for development unit. And we're sort of at the upstream of the operations where we advise the operational departments and curate knowledge for them and does some of the analysis related to digital technologies for operational department and help curate pipeline. But that also means that there are a lot of consulting opportunities with our unit in terms of providing assessment of the digital readiness of countries, for example, or different technology trends that we're trying to capture and impart within ADB. Last. And this is the strategic direction of the digital opportunities within ADB, where it's aligned with how ADB typically approaches in any other sectors. But first, the country-focused approach is really important. Instead of providing a cookie-cutter approach, we try to assess the readiness and then the unique needs of the country. And that's anchored in the country partnership strategy that ADB has come up with in partnership with the country government. And as Rustam mentioned, promoting innovative technologies is sort of becoming the core marching order for everyone in ADB. And teams like ours try to support that initiative by doing feasibility studies or supporting pilots. And lastly, digital technology alone is not itself is also an attractive field. At the same time, given where ADB has traditionally operated, we look for opportunities in cross-sector or thematic collaborations such as smart city and e-government. So I'll stop there and we'll be happy to take any questions after all the presentations are done. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ms. Yoni Yeong. We heard from her, Senior Digital Technology Specialist at the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department at the ADB. So before we move on, actually, I'd like to remind our audience that you can ask your questions from the Q&A button at the very bottom of your screen. So we will ask your questions at the end of our webinar to our speakers. Now it's time to hear from Ms. Mukta Malhotra, a public-private partnership specialist at the ADB. Mukta, virtual floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Temuz. If we can have my presentation on the screen. So good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today amongst all of you, representing ADB's Office of Public-Private Partnership, as we call it, OPPP. So through my presentation, I'll be covering two key areas in the next 15 minutes. First being the brief introduction to the Office of PPP and how the office is supporting ADB's target member countries to prepare bankable infrastructure projects in Asia Pacific. Next slide, please. And secondly, I'll be discussing about the previous one. I will be discussing about few immediate PPP opportunities in Central West Asia region and other regions across Asia with focus on sectors where unique and demonstrated experience of Turkish private sector players can be of immense benefit to our target member countries. Next slide. So beginning with introduction of Office of PPP. Next slide. As Rustam mentioned earlier, there has been an increasing emphasis on public-private partnership towards 2030 within ADB, and it will play a much larger role in mobilizing and catalyzing private resources for infrastructure development. Office of PPP, since the beginning of its operations from January 2015, has been an active partner of developing member countries in promoting PPPs. There are few barriers in promoting PPPs, like weak capacity and commitment, underdeveloped enabling environment, poor project preparation, insufficient project financing. And ADB's PPP strategy is actually based on a 4-pillar approach so as to support each member country in overcoming its own particular challenges. The Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 are customized to support upstream and policy level improvement. Pillar 1, through knowledge dissemination and training, helps in capacity development of the executing agencies, while Pillar 2 supports development of enabling environment by providing legal support and technical assistance. Pillar 3 and Pillar 4 focus on providing project-specific support for its preparation and financing. Pillar 3 provides support throughout the process, from structuring to bid management to commercial or financial close. While Pillar 4 is a support for financing of the project by providing non-sovereign and sovereign financing solutions and guarantees. Now, Office of PPP has two major ways to support through these pillars. The first being providing pre-funding through Asia Pacific Project Preparation Facility, and second through providing transaction advisory services. Now, talking about the first one, the Asia Pacific Project Preparation Facility is a $73 million fund with contributions from 3 financing partners, Japan, Australia, and Canada. This facility, as we call it AP3F, is managed exclusively by ADB on behalf of donors and provides technical assistance to pre-fund initial capacity building and project preparation activities required to develop well-structured PPP projects. Another important element for long-term sustenance of PPP projects is to monitor them post-award, and thus taking cognizance of the same, AP3F facility also provides project monitoring support. Moving on to transaction advisory services, Office of PPP provides advisory services throughout the value chain of the project, beginning from project preparation and structuring activities to marketing of the project to international investors, to supporting the government in running the tender process, to all the way to achievement of commercial closure. In certain instances, depending upon the specific requirements, we do support till achievement of financial closure as well. Next slide, please. I won't spend much time on these next 2 slides, but these 2 slides provide a flavor of our spread of operations, specifically the transactions closed by Office of PPP. Office of PPP has supported closure of several task mandates across countries in multiple sectors like energy, including solar and hydro, water and wastewater, transport, including road, railways, airport, waste management. Further, AP3F has supported more than 15 applications for capacity building, project definition, project preparation, project monitoring across entire Asia Pacific. The full details of our ongoing support are provided in the later slides, but I'll be discussing few of the upcoming opportunities in next part of my presentation, including the project focus on climate change, given the strong need, as mentioned by Mr. Guzar. Next slide, please. Next. So talking about the first opportunity is in solar sector in Uzbekistan. ADB is working with Ministry of Energy to develop the 1 gigawatt Uzbekistan solar program, and Office of PPP is sole transaction advisor for the entire 1 gigawatt program. The first project under this program is located near the city of Sherabad in southern Uzbekistan. The scope of the project is to develop around 457 megawatt solar PV plant through integrated PPP modality from design, build, finance, operate, and maintain. And the project is expected to achieve commercial closure imminently with a highly competitive tariff of 1.61 US dollar cents per unit for the solar farm. After the successful closure of this project, the second project is currently under preparation. The project is proposed to be of 300 megawatt in Guzar district. Now, important point here is this project is proposed to be based on the same template of the tender documents and PPP agreement as used for the Sherabad project, which has proven commercial viability and has already attracted sufficient private sector interest in the first project. We are currently preparing the project documentation for the cabinet approval. And once the approval is obtained, the tender process would be launched in fourth quarter of 2021. Next slide. Let's talk about wastewater treatment plants in Pakistan. The government of the province of Sindh and the Karachi Water and Sewerage Board has approved a program to develop several wastewater treatment plants in PPP mode in Karachi to alleviate water shortage in the city. The private sector will undertake design and construction of the project and sell the treated water for industrial and agricultural use to consumers for a period of 25 to 30 years. Office of PPP is sole transaction advisor for the two projects. The project is expected to be supported by viability gap funding and minimum revenue guarantee for initial years to mitigate demand risk for the private sector. The RFQ for the project TP4 is expected to be launched in the fourth quarter, and Office of PPP will be reaching out to the private sector developers for the market sounding very soon. Next one. Moving on to the healthcare project in Kazakhstan. It's Karaganda University Hospital. The city is located around 200 kilometers from the capital city of Nur Sultan. The scope of the project is to develop 300-bed hospital through DBFOM, which is design, build, finance, operate, and maintain. And the payment mechanism is proposed to be availability payment, and thus again taking away the market risk from the private sector. Office of PPP is the transaction advisor to the government of Kazakhstan. ADB had been working on legislative support to the government of Kazakhstan in introducing the infrastructure PPP model, which have been approved now. And currently, we are updating the project documentation, which will then be required to go through intergovernmental approval. And after this, the tender process is expected to be launched in the first quarter of next year. Next slide, please. Now moving on to the railway sector opportunities in Philippines. The two railway projects, one being North-South Commuter Rail, which is a 147-kilometer line suburban rail network connecting New Clark City to the south of Luzon, and the other being the Metro Manila Subway Project, a 30-kilometer in Metro Manila, and this is the first mass underground transport system in the country. The projects are being implemented as hybrid PPPs, where the construction is funded by the government with loans from ADB and JICA, while the operations and maintenance is being tendered to the private sector through long-term concession arrangements. The projects are supported by availability payment, thus mitigating traffic risk for the operator. The tender process is expected to be launched in first half of next year after the approval of the government. Next slide, please. Talking about elderly care PPP project in People's Republic of China. This greenfield elderly care facility is in a new city in Guangxi, situated in the southern part of China. The scope of the project is to design, build, and operate 450 bed capacity integrated with at-home care, that is long-term care at the post-acute stage. Office of PPP is transaction advisor for the project. One unique feature of this project is that it is supported by ADB Sovereign Loan through East Asia Regional Department to finance approximately 50% of the CAPEX, showcasing one ADB approach. Currently, the project documentation is being prepared for the government approval under the PPP law, and the launch of the tender process is expected in the last quarter of 2021. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. This one is a student accommodation PPP project. Go back. In Azerbaijan. Just go back to the slide. Yeah, this one. Thank you. The Ministry of Education and Ministry of Economy in Azerbaijan are in process of developing and implementing a pilot student accommodation PPP project in central Baku, the capital city. The scope of the project is to design, build, finance, operate, and maintain the facility with capacity for approximately 1,000 residents. The project is supported by technical assistance from AP3F. Currently, the project's payment mechanism under the PPP structure is being finalized, and we anticipate the tender launch in January 2022. Next one. Let's talk about the school's PPP project in Tashkent. This project comprises of 16 public schools covering grades 1 to 11 spread across few districts in Tashkent. The scope of the project is to develop these schools on the basis of design, build, finance, and maintain. The operations of these public schools would remain with the public sector. That is, the delivery of the education would be the responsibility of the public sector. Office of PPP is the transaction advisor of the project. Currently, the Ministry of Public Education, the ministry responsible for delivery of education in Uzbekistan, is in the process of identifying the sites and obtaining allocation of these sites for the purpose of development of schools. After that, government approval process through cabinet would be initiated. The tender process is expected to commence in Q1 of 2022. Next slide. Moving on to waste management project in Indonesia. This is located in South Tangerang city, and the scope of the project is to design, build, finance, operate, and maintain a new waste treatment facility with capacity of 800 tons of waste per day. Currently, most of the municipal solid waste are dumped in open landfill sites in the city. Thus, the project addresses the immediate need of the city. Currently, the final business case is under preparation along with the assessment of the land. Next slide, please. The last one is the solid waste management project in Uzbekistan. ADB has been supporting the State Committee of Ecology and Environmental Protection and the Tashkent City Municipality through AP3F and GIF to identify PPP opportunities in Tashkent and other cities. The study has identified options for solid waste management services, including incineration, which can be procured through PPP modality. The final project scope will be defined subsequent to the project scoping exercise, which is expected to begin shortly. Next slide. So that's all from me. Hopefully, I have been able to provide you all a glimpse of our operations and our ongoing mandates across regions of your interest. Happy to take questions after the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mukta, for your presentation. Now it's time to hear from Ms. Rubina Shaheen, Principal Procurement Specialist at the ADB. We'll hear from her about very important topics, how to locate business opportunities, ADB updates on procurement process, and ADB procurement systems. Virtual floor is yours, Rubina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Temus. Good morning to everyone. And I'm very happy and excited to be here and present briefly about the ADB procurement rules and regulations. I'm Rubina Shaheen, Principal Procurement Specialist. I am working for the Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department of ADB. So Rustam and myself are from the same department. Can you please share the slides, please? Next slide, please. So just to give you an overview, what we are going, previous slide, please. In today's session, we are going to discuss and show you about what is the ADB portfolio and which are the sectors which we are working for, and who are the key top suppliers, contractors, and the consultants who have been supporting the ADB portfolio. And most importantly, the interest for you is we will also show you who are our key suppliers and contractors and the consultant from Turkey. What are the ADB procurement framework? And then also how we are doing for ourselves and our DMCs. They are procuring the goods works and consulting services under the ADB Finance project. Some tips for you, for the participating community in the ADB Finance project. What are some important tips that you can take away from this session to avoid those mistakes, to ensure you are able to win ADB Finance projects? And then also the most important, the last two slides are critically important to talk about where you can find the information on ADB website. There's a lot of information which is available, and many of you may not be aware where to exactly find the information. So that will be very helpful. Next slide, please. This is just to give you an overview that ADB was founded in 1966. Our headquarters is in Manila, Philippines. And then we work and support our DMCs in various sectors, and we work with them by giving them the loans, grants, technical assistance, and we work in the projects like the equity and the guarantee-based projects. Our biggest borrowers are India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Indonesia. To deliver our project effectively, we work with a diversified group of people. We work directly with through our DMC with our private sector. We work with the NGOs, CBOs, foundation, academia, various donors, and we work with the donors particularly to enhance our collaboration and to enhance our financial resources, as well as to harmonize our policies and the procedures. For example, procurement framework has been harmonized with the other multilateral development bank, because eventually we work with the same DMC, so it is easier for our DMCs also to having the similarity or at least consistency in our policies and the regulations. Next slide, please. If you can see, our portfolio is now, sovereign portfolio is 102 billion. It's a huge portfolio. In ADB, we work in the 5 regions, Central and West region. It comprises, it works in 10 countries. Then we have the South Asia, having 6 countries, Southeast Asia, 8 countries, East Asia is 2 countries, basically Mongolia and China. And then we work with 14 small countries in Pacific. However, the biggest portfolio is taken over by South Asia, followed by Southeast Asia and Central West, which are neck to neck with each other, and then the rest of the region. The 2 biggest portfolio in ADB are transport and energy, which constitute about 50% of the entire portfolio. There is a little bit downward trend from 2019 to 2020. If you can see, slight reduction in the portfolio, transport, energy, water, and agriculture, whereas the education is the same, remained at the same, and some other sectors which have public sector management, made a little bit growth there. But in the coming years, we will be expanding our portfolio in the health and education, particularly health, because of this recent pandemic situation. We will be expanding and spending more money in the health sector. Next slide, please. This slide, just to give you an idea, the ADB portfolio is constantly growing. Looking from 2016 to 2020, you can see on average every year, our portfolio is growing at least at the 8.6% per annum. So there's a lot of opportunity for everyone to work for ADB. Next slide, please. So this slide is showing about the ADB's portfolio, non-sovereign portfolio. It is 14 billion only. And again, if you can see from the slide from 2016 to 2020, it is also growing every year. And the future is also, in future also, ADB really want to enhance its portfolio in the private sector. That is also one of the agenda for our strategy 2030. Next slide. So this slide gives you, my other colleagues have also spoken about the strategy 2030 and what are the key pillars and operational priorities of this document. From the procurement perspective, we are focusing more on the governance and developing the capacity of our DMC to ensure they have the systems in place. There is a transparency that gives more confidence to our participating bidding community to ensure that the bids will be treated fairly and transparently, and also to ensure that they can deliver the project for the intended purposes without compromising on the quality and achieving value for money. We also want to enhance our gender equality, and we expect by at least 2030, 70% of our project will be enhanced by gender equality. 70% will be gender equality. So little bit takeaway from this slide would be to expand here that if you see here, expanding private sector operation, I'm still in the previous slide, please. Here we are saying that 1/3 of the ADB operation by 2024 will be taken over by private sector. So there is a lot of opportunity for you, and upcoming in the coming years, there will be more growth in the private sector. In addition to that, ADB also spend its resources in developing and strengthening the capacity and the knowledge product as well. And this is one of our priority areas. So in this slide, you can see we have the goods, consulting services, and the works. So this slide is showing you for all the DMCs that have been providing or working with ADB's portfolio by each country starting from its origin for various type of the services. So as you can see in 2017 and 18, number 1 was PRC China, and 2019 and 20 it was taken over by India. The good news here is that in 2020, we see also Turkey number 4 in 2020. So in the goods, you see Turkish firms are there who are making an effort and trying to come up in the 4 or 5 top ranked suppliers. But if you look into procurement of works and the consulting services, we still do not see Turkish firms and the contractors. So there is a lot of opportunity for you, and you hopefully by the end of this slide, you will have some understanding how to compete and submit your bid, compliant bid in ADB finance projects. Next slide, please. This slide just gives you an idea who are the top ranked 5 firms for the last 4 years and what is the work they have carried forward or supplied to ADB. Next slide. Likewise, this slide shows you what are the main contractors for the works and how many contracts they have done with ADB in the past 4 years. Next slide, please. Services. These are the consulting firms who have provided the services to ADB, and these are all basically coming from the European country mostly. So this is also one of the area where you can expand your potential to engage yourself in ADB finance projects. Next slide, please. So this is an interesting slide for you to look into. This slide shows that Turkish firm has been very active for the last 5 years, mostly in the transport and energy sector. And the total volume has been about 644 million. Next slide. For consulting also, there is some portion has been taken over by Turkish firm, but I think there is a need to we can do better and you can get more business. This slide shows not only the consulting firm, there are the number 0.6 refers about 11.96 million, which has been used by the individual consultant by Turkish nationals. Next slide, please. This slide just to give you an idea, if you see the link given indicated at the end of this slide, this is first time the ADB has developed the operational procurement statistics. It's called the ProcDash. This gives you, if you go to this link will give you the what type of the portfolio we are working in, how many contracts have been awarded in terms of works, goods, and consulting services, It's a very, very comprehensive data. You can go and filter the data by the country, by a sector, and the type of the services you are looking for. So it will be very useful for your own strategy, and looking forward, if you want to associate or have a joint venture with the other big companies, it will give you an idea who are the biggest player in the market. Next slide, please. So why to pursue ADB funded contracts? ADB finance contracts, when loans are signed with our DMCs, of course, there is a guarantee for the timely payment to the contractor. And this is one of the concerns faced by many of our contractors and the consultant when the timely payments are not made. For the large value contract, on the request of the DMCs, the ADB is the one who directly make payments to the contractors and the suppliers. So it means the payments are assured, timely payments are assured. So this is one of the benefits of working on ADB finance contracts. Then we are working in so many different type of, we have a big and diversified type of portfolio. We work in transport, we work in energy, we work in health, education, urban, you name it. We are even expanding, including the private sector. So you have a potential to work in various sectors. Then when the ADB finance projects are approved in the loan covenant, it is a requirement that all those contracts shall be subject to the ADB's procurement regulation. And the ADB Procurement Framework and Regulation are based on the internationally accepted transparent procedures. So it gives you a more confidence working for the ADB finance projects, because ADB also has a role to play during the implementation and the procurement process of the ADB finance project. Even though we are not directly involved in the procurement, but we do have a role, and we do provide the fiduciary oversight by reviewing several type of the documents at various stages of the bidding process. So it enhances the credibility, and it gives assurances that the procurement shall be carried out by the agreed procurement procedures. And also working for the institution like ADB, it gives myself an immense pleasure to work for this type of organization. And so would you feel happy working for an ADB finance project? Next slide, please. So what are the type of the activities and activities or the type of the interventions or the procurement volume we are engaged in for ADB finance projects is mostly on the goods, works, consulting services, and non-consulting services. Major chunk of the money goes to the civil works, and civil works we are again doing in the roads, railways, all these sectors we are doing different type of works. In the works contract, we normally use the FIDIC, MDB 2010, or any other type of the FIDIC contract, which is suitable for any type of particular type of a transaction. Whereas for the EPC type of the transaction, we are using the ANA or other relevant FIDIC, maybe yellow book, or mostly the yellow book would be more appropriate. And the consulting services, as Rustam also mentioned, that most of our DMCs, they require engineer to supervise the work. So to have that one, they normally recruit a firm for the entire duration of the construction period. So there are big and large opportunities, not only for the supervision. We need the consulting services for the design. We need the consulting services for the feasibility. We need the consulting services for various type of the service, as well as for the knowledge project, capacity building. So there's a lot of potential in the consulting services as well. And also now the new sector is with the COVID-19, we are looking for the various and diversified type of the consulting services. For example, like performance audit type of firms, taking care of this waste management disposal type of consulting firms who have the past experience and good understanding. So there are a lot of opportunities in ADB in consulting as well. Non-consulting services are used for very small, simple type of like surveys, training. This is a new feature of the ADB that we have introduced in our policy. Next slide, please. So this slide has been prepared just to give you an idea what is the ADB project cycle and where are mostly our consulting, contracting, and suppliers input is required. If I can briefly explain you about this, any project in a country, we start with developing a strategic country partnership strategy, which is called CPS, and it is developed for 3 to 5 years of period. This document defines all the upcoming opportunity for the next 3 to 5 years. So when we are developing this document itself, ADB is the one who helped the government. So most of the time we hire a lot of individual consultants who help us in conducting various types of analysis, assessment, how the countries have been doing in a particular sector and what are the still loopholes and where we can improve in the next 5 years. So a lot of potential here at this stage. When a project has been approved in a CPS document, then the next step for ADB would be to develop internally a concept paper for a particular project. Here is also an opportunity for an individual consultant, which will be hired by ADB directly under the technical assistance grant or ADB own resources, which is called the staff funds. For the project preparation also, we normally hire the consulting firm who usually help us with the development of the feasibility studies and various assessments before we go for the project approval. These all consultants are directly hired by ADB as a grant money given to our DMCs for the preparation of the project. Once the project is approved, then we can go to the implementation. Huge chunk of the money, the loan amounts that we are signing for the billions of dollars, it is spent during the implementation, where the DMC directly hire a lot of consultants, supplier, and the contractors to deliver the agreed output. So chunk of money is here in the implementation. The last point of the cycle, project cycle, is evaluation. Evaluation is done at the completion of the project, and it's carried out by our own department, independent evaluation department, but they also do this kind of assessment with the help of individual consultant, and rarely there is a need for the consulting firm. So this, if you have the understanding of the ADB project cycle, there are various steps. So you can see at each and every step of the cycle, there is a need for the consultants and all the players in the market. Next slide, please. So this slide will just give you a little bit overview of Adb Procurement Framework. Some of the participants in our today's session may be familiar with the Adb framework, which have been is still under ongoing for the ongoing portfolio we are using. This green book, which is called the Guidelines on Use of Consultants, and the red book is for the procurement of goods and works. This is used for the projects which were approved before 1st July 2017, and they continue to apply for those projects. Any projects which has been developed or approved after 1st July 2017, they are required to follow the ADB new procurement policy and the framework. In this policy, what we have done, we have developed the policy, and then we have come up with only one set of the regulation which covers both goods, works, consulting services, and non-consulting services. In addition to that, to support our DMCs, ADB own staff, and the participating contractors, suppliers, and the consultants, we have developed staff instructions, 24 guidance notes to guide our user and people who are going to submit their bids. These are available, everything is available on ADB website. And also, can you go to the next slide, please? So when we do the procurement, these 6 key international best practices and the principles which are embedded in our procurement policy and the framework, this should be complied with. These are critically important, and they have to be complied as and when required, subject to a particular transaction, and we need to strike a balance what and how to choose. For example, the fairness means that we should give an equal opportunity to all the participating bidders. There should not be any reason other than non-compliance type of requirement. For example, if a bidder is coming from a non-member country, other than that, we should not reject that bidder if he is meeting that technical qualification requirement of the bidder. So we pay a lot of attention on the fairness, and then also the system, the countries where we are working with, they should have a compatible and a good mechanism of complaint handling, so that it gives a confidence to the participating community that their bids shall be treated fairly and transparently. Likewise, economy, we have to look into how we can ensure that the type of the bidding process or the procedures we are going to use is going to achieve economy for a particular transaction or a project. So this all goes down to the implementation arrangement and the procurement strategy that needs to be developed for each of the project. Efficiency, likewise, we need to ensure what are the implementation arrangement, that how quickly we can deliver the project. Transparency means all the information should be available to the bidders. It should be, we highly emphasize, and it's one of the requirements that the procurement plan should be published on the Adb website as well as on the EA's website. The quality and value for money also go hands in hand, and it has to be complied with during when we are developing the project's procurement strategy for a particular project. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea, what is the relationship between the Adb, the government, our DMCs, and the contractors and the suppliers. Adb does not have any direct relationship between the supplier and the contractor. Adb only has a relationship with our executing or the DMCs through a financing agreement or the loan agreement. Whereas the direct relationship between the supplier and the executing agencies is governed by the bidding documents or the contracts that they are going to sign. Adb only signs the contract directly with the contract consultants, where we hire them under the technical assistance. Under the loans, we have no direct relationship. Adb can be involved in exceptional cases where sometimes there is a complaint or there's a debriefing, but normally that also we go through our DMCs. Next slide, please. This slides give you that what are the bidding documents which are developed for and available on Adb website. We have for goods, pre-qualification, works, small and large plant, and this information technology and product services was developed in 2018. This was a new document. This is used for a very, very large infrastructure type of project where you need, for example, if you want to one government department, you want to make it fully functional, IT, networking and everything. So that is the type of the document that will be most relevant and suitable. And it is based on the scoring system criteria, which gives a quality and cost benefit for evaluation. And the design, build, operate, this is also one of the new documents which was developed in 2018. As of now, we have for the water sector about a wastewater treatment plant for the greenfield projects, but we are planning to develop another document as well for the other sectors, because this will be the future as well. There's a high demand from our DMCs to work in the use of design, build, operate type of projects. And the non-consulting services, a new feature of the Adb procurement regulation, has been introduced. Next slide, please. This slide just gives you a brief idea what are the procurement method of Adb, which have been introduced, which are already there, and some of the new methods have been introduced. In a nutshell, open competitive bidding is the default method of the procurement and is the preferred method. But in exceptional cases and as when required to ensure that we achieve economy and efficiency and the value for money, so we have to design and choose the procurement method which is fitness for purpose approach, and that can be best suited for a particular transaction in a particular scenario. So there are these different methods are available. Just briefly, this new feature has been introduced, a framework agreement for the consulting services, and electronic reverse auction and high level technology, our colleague also mentioned. We are paying a lot of attention and we are looking for our contractors and the consultant who can give us some good ideas and bring some good innovative ideas in the design of a project. Design feature can be improved by use of high-level technology. And it also, we are now more flexible and allowing to use of the point scoring system in the valuation of the bids, as well as using of the life cycle costing type of criteria in our bids. So it's more flexible, and it's also challenging to work and find good quality contractors and the consultant who can help our DMCs to introduce high level technology in our projects. Next slide, please. This slide is just to give you some of the bullet points to please pay attention when you submit your bids, because many times we see that, for example, the letter of bid is not signed, or it is not even signed by the authorized representative. Submitting the bid of about maybe normally 5,000, 6,000 pages sometimes for the very large mega project. And it's such a small mistake not to sign the letter of bid. But unfortunately, this is a kind of a material or major deviation, and this type of bid cannot be acceptable. So please pay attention when you submit the bid. When the bid security or bid scoring is required, please make sure it is submitted with correct information. And then if you are submitting bid with the joint venture or with the joint venture arrangement, please make sure that you submit the required information as defined in the bidding document. Many times we see that the financial statements are not submitted, or maybe not submitted for the entire. Normally we ask for 3 to 5 years. So incomplete or partial bid, major information of the bid is not submitted. So this type of bid can also lead to the rejection. Type test report is very important for the energy sector and the water sector type of project. So if it is required, so please do submit at the time of submission of the bid. And the conflict of interest is one of the areas that it is the responsibility of the bidder itself. It has to be disclosed. So please, this one also needs to be indicated. So there are some of the missing items. For example, if you have submitted the financial statement, maybe for 1 or 2 years, but you have not submitted for 3 years, it may lead to the, it may be a minor deviation, and EA can ask you for the submission. But for example, if you have not submitted the EXP1 form, which is a critical for your past experience, if your form is not missing, then the bid can also lead to the rejection. These are small but very, very important mistakes. So please do pay attention to these details. Next slide, please. So Adb Anti-Corruption Policy, there is a zero tolerance. It is applicable to both our contractor, supplier, consultant, as well as for Adb staff. So if you see our bidding document, those requirements and the definitions are also in disclosure by the conflict of interest. Everything is defined into the bidding documents, and particularly you can look into the instructions of bidder and the letter of bid. It's clearly written there. Next slide, please. Next. So here we briefly go through this for TA consultants and this loan and the grant consultant. TA consultants are one which is hired by Adb. And the important point here to note is when we hire the consultant under the TS, normally they get the privileges and immunities because of the TA agreement that we have signed for a particular DMC. However, there may be some cases where this may not be applicable. It varies from country to country. So pay attention to this when you engage with Adb yourself. And the complaint when we are hiring, if these are addressed directly to Adb and we respond or handle them. Whereas any consultant firms or the individuals, they are hired by the DMCs directly. The text is an important point, and please seek your clarity from the your executing implementing agency that what are the arrangements, because it has the cost implication in your proposal. So this is one of the critical points on the text when you work in the consulting area. Next slide, please. So the consultants can be hired through the firms or through the individuals. And then, as we mentioned earlier, for the staff consultant, it's Adb who will do it. We do hire the consulting firm and the national, both for the national and the international, and they can be individuals and through the firms as well. Next slide, please. This slide just gives you from what are the key steps that are involved in the recruitment of a consulting firm. So first of all, we need to have the TORs, advertisement, shortlisting, tendering, evaluation, negotiations, and contract management. So in the whole, the recruitment of a consultant, it takes about 6 to 7 months by the executing agency normally. And there are about 2 to 3 steps where ADB gives its no objection before they go to the next step. So that's why it takes longer time. Whereas when we hire the firm ourselves, it is expeditious because we don't need to go outside to get an objection. Next slide, please. So these are some of the methods that are used for the recruitment of the consulting firm. Most commonly used is the quality and cost-based selection, where we pay attention to both quality and the cost, and the 3 options are used. It could be 90-10, 80-20, or 70-30, depending upon the assignment requirement. Direct contracting method is there, but it is the least preferred method because then it compromises on the transparency of the bidding process. However, when there is a need to go through and there is a need to have the direct contracting, maybe this is the only firm who can provide that particular kind of thing or assignment, then there is a possibility to engage directly with proper justification. Next slide, please. So these are the various steps that are briefly elaborated here, how you have to do it. It is the important point I would just like to highlight here, that there is a CMS system, consultant management system. This is an online system. Whether the consulting firms are going through the ADBTA or under the loan, they have to be registered with the CMS. And that is the most important point, I think, in this whole slide. And the rest is just like routine work we do. Nothing special on this system. We can go to the next slide, please. So this individual comparing to recruitment of a firm, the individual recruitment is very quick and fast, and it takes minimum 7 days for the advertisement and followed by the shortlist, and we select only the first rank and negotiate with them. So this is the important point in this slide, is to note that do not start any of the assignment unless ADB has issued you the notice to proceed, and likewise for the loan consulting. Next slide, please. So this is how to approach the ADB consulting assignment. Know your DMC, try to find out who are the key players in that particular industry or the sector that you want to engage. And tax is very important. It's create a lot of problems also. This slide also just highlights some of the key points that you should keep in mind. And the most important at the end, if you are not clear in any of the things, please make sure you do ask the question before you submit your proposal. Once you have submitted your proposal, you lose your opportunity to get any clarity. Next slide, please. So in the debriefing is one of the area where the ADB also provide the debriefing or explanation to the firm if they complain or they request that why they were not able to win the contract. So this is an opportunity for improving their proposal submission for the next time. Submission of the bid. Complaints are handled by the ADB for ADB financed TA consultants, and if it is by the loan, it will be the DMCs. And as I explained earlier, we will be on exceptional basis, will be intervening on complaints as well. And any fraud related information, you can always complain on this link. Next slide, please. So I will not go through very details. The next few slides are just where you can go find the information on ADB website. All the next slide, please. Everything is available on this ADB website. How to work with ADB, where you can find the ADB procurement regulation, guidance notes, documents. Just follow these instructions on the ADB website. Next slide, please. It gives you the information where we have published the procurement plan. We publish the advanced contracting notice and all of the relevant information of the contracts that have been awarded. That information is also published on the ADB website. Next slide, please. So this is just slides take you through to various, next slide, please. I just want, next slide. Yeah, this slide is important, that how you can register yourself with CMS. If you have not registered, you can go to this side and then you can get the weekly alerts also of the upcoming opportunities. Next slide, please. So this slide shows you, showing you clearly what are the open opportunities still which are available and you would be interested to participate. Next slide. The last one, I think this is the last one where it shows about the COVID-19 opportunity which are available on ADB projects. Next slide. Next slide. Yes, so you can filter if there are COVID-19 related information or the assignments, you can go there, and this slide just shows you if you want to network with your counterparts, consultants, suppliers, there is a platform, the LinkedIn, do connect with each other. And if you have any question, you can always come back to us after the event as well. So I'll just stop here and hand over the floor to Tamis. Thank you. Tamis.
Thank you very much, Rubina, for your very insightful presentation. So before we begin our Q&A session, I'd like to say that this year ADB and Turkey are celebrating the 30th year of anniversary of their partnership. And hopefully this milestone will promote more cooperation, more engagement from Turkish private sector to the ADB. And today in our seminar, I'm glad to announce that we are joined by more than 40 company representatives. And we encourage all of them to ask more questions. And thank you all for all presentations and all speeches. Now we are moving towards to the Q&A session. And let's start. We received a couple of questions actually from the Q&A section. So I think we can start with the first question that has been asked. Ms. Yilmaz is asking, could you please tell us more about what are the main eligibility requirements for bidding contracts under ADB finance projects, especially for the PPP projects? Maybe Mukta can address to that question.
Yeah, thank you, Tamus. Thank you for the question. I'll take up the second part of the question, which is for the PPP projects. So for PPP projects, it's actually, in each member country where we are procuring the PPP project, it's actually driven by their procurement law. But most importantly, there are pre-qualifying criteria mentioned in each RFQ document for each project. So these may differ depending upon each project. But in general, there are 3 categories of pre-qualifying criteria which you will find across projects. One, a legal pre-qualifying criteria, which basically, assesses that the company who is bidding for it is established and is in proper form to bid for the project. Second, the technical pre-qualifying criteria, which basically assesses that the developer is having enough technical expertise to undertake the project. And the third being financial pre-qualifying criteria, under which basically it's assessed that the private company has financial strength to undertake the project. Because as you know, for PPP projects, most of the PPP projects will also have financing to be arranged by the private partner. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mukta, for your reply. Now I think we can move on with the second question that has been asked by Mr. Ismail. And he's asking about how does ADB cooperate? It's a more broad, more generic question. How does ADB cooperate with the financial institutions? Does it finance projects in partnership with financial institutions? And does it provide financing to financial institutions, which will in turn on lend it to the private sector? It's a more generic question. I'm sure. Who would you like to address to that question? Mukta, maybe? No.
Sure. So I'll again take part of the question, and I'll request other panelists to please pitch in. But yes, we do have our private sector operations department who can lend directly to the private sector borrowers. And we also do have a financial institution department within sovereign as well as private sector, which can lend to financial institutions, which can further on lend to the private sector. So just to take an example, for a PPP project in Bangladesh, ADB lent to a financial institution in Bangladesh, which is owned by the government of Bangladesh through the sovereign window. And then that particular institution, which is known as BIFFL, further on lend to the private sector those funds for a PPP road project. So again, as I said, there are both windows possible: direct lending to the private sector or lending to the private sector through a financial institution. I'll invite maybe Veena if you have any comments to add.
Yes, thanks, Mukta. So maybe I'll start from here and then go back to the eligibility, also a little bit expand over there as well. So yes, as Mukta has rightly pointed out, that there is both options are available within ADB on the on-land, further on lending to the third party. So from the procurement perspective, I just want to clarify there. Then when it is the on lending modality, normally what we do is the level of the assessment and the application of the rules and the regulation of the procurement framework applies to the first lender only. So if the government of the Bangladesh example, which is given by Mukta, if it is that institution where the ADB has the sovereign guarantee loan, so we will look into their capabilities and the capacity. And if they are going to do any procurement, then it will be the ADB procurement regulation will follow. But if they are going to further sublend to another third party, the private sector, then in terms of, we are not going to see transaction by transaction, but it will be the principle of procurement, the 6 core procurement principle that I mentioned in my presentation, those will apply. And during implementation, those are the areas we will be looking into before we make any disbursement. So this is how it works, and slight difference between the on lending modality and the investment type of a loan. Going back to the eligibility question, in ADB, if the finances are coming from the ADB, OCR and others, then it is the member country eligibility that shall apply. So we have 68 member countries. So it means that consultant contractors, they can come from those countries. Whereas when we have the joint financing is coming from another donor and we are co-financing, then depending on the type of the financing, it is a term called universal procurement, in which case the eligibility of that country eligibility does not apply, and it is a broader area to expand your member countries. In terms of the qualifications and other requirements, because this is one aspect of the eligibility, one is a financial part of it, country part of it, and the other type of eligibility is the bidding document will define your qualification requirement, financial requirement, and the technical specifications. So those things should also be complied with when you are submitting the bid. The most important thing also I would like to highlight about this sanctioning by ADB. If any of the country, for example, a Turkish contractor or the consultant, they are from eligible member country because Turkey is a member country of ADB. But if that particular contractor, consultant, or an individual is debarred or sanctioned by ADB, then that one, even if they're qualified technically, they will not be eligible to participate. So there are some restriction in terms of eligibilities, the country, the technical performance, and the sanctioning. So I would request all the participating contractors, consultants, and the individuals, when they want to participate, please ensure you can either go onto the ADB website. There is a sanction list published, publicly available to all. And if you are working with our DMCs, there is a full list of debarment, which is not available to our contractors and the consultants. So when before participating or submitting your bid, please make sure you check with your DMC and assess whether their name is not in the sanction list. Many times we have seen they have submitted the bids, and as you will know better than me, it is not free job to submit a bid. It's quite an expensive activity, time consuming and money consuming activity. So they submit the bid when we are reviewing it and we found they are sanctioned on ADB. So the whole thing is gone to the drain. So it's very important you look into main criteria and eligibility requirement of ADB. If you are in doubt, please do ask questions directly to your executing and implementing agency. In the bidding document, there is most of the time there is pre-bid meetings are organized. This is the best opportunity for you to coordinate with them. Even if that is not particularly written into the bidding document, you can always go and write and send them the email for the clarifications. So I'll just stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rubina. Well, I think the question about the new technology projects has already been answered by Uni. So thank you. So we have another question from who's saying that Turkey is one of the non-regional members of the ADB. So how Turkey can be more actively involved to all of these new opportunities? Who would like to answer that question, maybe?
If I may.
Of course. Yeah.
So in terms of regional or non-regional, it does not matter to us. As far as you are a member and you are eligible and you have the right type of the technical capacity and you meet the qualification requirement of ADB, you are not in ADB sanction list, you are most welcome and you are able to participate. One advice would be that I think I can just briefly explain that if you think that you are not able to, if there is a big project in any sector, transport, urban, dams, if you are not able to meet those qualification requirements by yourself, it's an opportunity for you that you link with the other members or other such suppliers, contractors, and then you can come as a joint venture to complement your qualification requirement. So that's the homework before you submit your bid. Mukta has to add something.
Yeah, thank you, Rubina. Yeah, I just wanted to add, a perspective for PPP projects. So as I mentioned that the PPP projects are procured under the PPP law or the procurement law of the respective country. So in general, these projects are advertised on the sites of the respective line agencies or ministries of those countries. So it's important to understand this difference between ADB financed or procured projects versus OPPP advised projects, which are generally advertised on the ministry's websites. So in terms of opportunities, I would just like to mention that for many projects, especially in Uzbekistan, we have seen quite a bit of interest, very strong interest from Turkish players. And for a particular project, which I am personally involved, is a wastewater treatment plant in Namangan in Uzbekistan. And we have, out of 5 shortlisted bidders, we have 3 from Turkey in consortium with other players. So what I'm saying is that there are enough opportunities, and specifically, as I highlighted, in many sectors where we believe that Turkish players can have a good technical and benefit in terms of their experience to showcase and participate. So do keep an eye on the respective ministries' websites. And of course, as Office of PPP, we also reach out to the private sector developers for our market sounding discussions. And as I mentioned, for the projects in Pakistan, we should be reaching out to the private sector developers soon. And in general, if you are interested in any of the projects which I showcase, feel free to write to me and I can connect you to the respective team members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukta and Rubina. Uni, I think you have something to add.
Sure. I think in the area of digital, perhaps there's more opportunities for companies that feel that they're not within the region. I absolutely agree with Rubina and Mukta saying that as long as you have the technical expertise, there's really and meet other criteria. No reason for you to feel that you can't work with Adb. Just wanted to give some examples. This relates to the answer that I already provided in the Q&A chat. But in the area of digital, we're seeing more demand, although they're small in scale, in the use of AI and ML in analyzing various data that our member countries have collected or that are in public domain, for example. And most of the service providers were either in Europe, North America, so I don't see why we can't have company from Turkey participating in that space. Another example is actually a company that Adb invested called Skycatch, and they provide basically a remote construction monitoring service using digital twin, which sounds fancy, but in essence, it's a drone that flies around the construction sites and monitors whether the resources are being used right way, whether the construction is making the progress as they planned. And that service is, and that Adb project that they're part of is in Nauru, which is a very small island in the Pacific. The service is being offered out of the Philippines and west coast of US. So there are more and more areas in digital that Adb will explore and would love to see more interest from companies in Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuni. So to our audience, if you have any more questions, please send us and then we'll share them immediately with our amazing speakers who are present today with us. So very final one, I think Adb has a special focus on the climate change and disaster risk management, and you have an amazing event approaching on 7th of October. Would you like to give a bit of information about this event so that we can announce to our audience as well?
Maybe I can briefly just say that I don't have much details about that event, but I think it is going to talk about what are the what does climate change means for Adb and for our DMCs, and the potential intervention where Adb is planning to move ahead. And I think there are a lot of opportunities. So we encourage you all to please do participate in those type of, it gives you also a platform for networking also and hearing from different colleagues as well. So these type of platforms are very useful. And I also want to just mention that I think through media, we have been hearing just not now, before even that Turkey is now becoming the cheapest country in terms of providing the health support. And many European countries are even coming to Turkey for the medical facilities or the services. So, and I think with the COVID-19, we see there's a lot of potential in coming years, at least for next few years, to work in the health sector. So I think that is one of the areas that the Turkish firms can definitely work in the health sector.
Thank you, Rubina. So before we close our seminar, I'd like to give the floor to our chairman, the chairman of Turkey Singapore Business Council, Suhabe, if you have anything to add for your closing remarks.
Sorry, just can I make one statement that I apologize that Rustam just mentioned that he was called off for another meeting and he will not be here for the closing. Thank you.
No problem. Actually, I would like to thank to you all, to all of our colleagues at Adb, as well as all DEIK board. I mean, this is really fruitful. Turkey's interest on Adb and collaboration will take much longer time to further explore and all that. These are extremely important notices. So I'm just thankful to all audience and the presentation that has been presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Stefan wants to say something. Stefan, are you still there?
Please, Stefan.
Yeah, I'm here. No, thank you very much for all the very interesting presentation. I listened to it very carefully. In addition of what Rubena said, you are really invited to attend next week event on climate change. It's a follow-up event where we try really to explain, we hear a lot about climate change in all the countries and how serious these topics start to be. So we want to give you the highlights and updates on what ADB is doing on this aspect, because of course we are working on that, and we will present different initiatives for contractors and consultants to better contribute on this worldwide climate change effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. So I think we came to an end. If there is any other, if there's no other comment or
very quickly,
yes,
like to also get some airtime about another event that's happening called Digital X ADB. And an event like this actually offers an exhibition space for some of the upcoming companies and emerging solutions. So I think that's another avenue that some of the companies could explore. ADB also started undertaking a lot of tech challenges, hackathon type of events as well for perhaps smaller companies with innovative technologies who are interested in working with ADB. So please stay tuned, and I'll be happy to send information about the Digital X ADB event through Temmuz.
I will share it with all Turkish business community. And I think we came to an end. Well, thank you very much for all the presentations, all the speeches, and thank you. Special thanks to our audience who joined us today. We welcomed more than 40 companies. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for our next events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.